Hi, and welcome to Dockside with Deb. In this weekly show, we'll talk to people who are doing some pretty cool things in sailing and experts in their field. I'm Deborah Diel, sailor, founder of MySail, and your host for today. Dockside with Deb is recorded live, so you can join in and ask your own questions. To find out more, head to mysail.team/docksideWithDeb. Let's get started.
So welcome to Dockside with Deb, except this is not Deb, obviously. I'm Katie O'Mara. I sail with Deb on a few different boats, and Deb has had to step out for an emergency for her dog. So apparently she was taking Axel, her dog, for a walk today, and was up just literally only about 40 minutes ago, and he's had a bit of an episode that seems quite serious. So she's having to take him to the vet, and obviously she loves to, anyone who knows Deb knows how much she loves her puppies, and is pretty worried right now. So she asked me to step in. I've done a little bit of prep, but luckily it's not me doing all the talking today. So Will's going to, hopefully make me look good. No pressure, Will. And yeah, so obviously we have Will Ryan here. Will is part of the Australian sailing team, represented Australia in Rio de Janeiro in 2016, won silver with Mat Belcher, and was meant to be going to the Olympics in Tokyo and representing Australia again in the 470s as well, I believe.
Yep. Same boat, same partner. And
same partner.
Hoping to go one better.
Yeah. Well, yes. So bettering a silver would be awesome. But obviously you, with everybody else, all the plans are being turned on their head. And today, Deb really wanted to talk to you about how you've sort of coped with that. Obviously, there's so much mental build up and preparation and everything else to get ready for the Olympics. And now you must be at a bit of a loss as to, well, maybe you're not. Like, how are you dealing with it?
The Olympic journey is a bit of a funny one. I guess it's 4 years and you're all about this one performance at the end of it. I guess You see girls for their wedding day, they spend their whole life like really excited for this one day of all their dreams of how they're going to have the perfect dress and the perfect music and all the things that are going to line up in a row. And I think that's a little bit what you try to emulate in a smaller scale for the Olympics, is you have that time frame to push everything towards its peak for the correct timing. For myself and Matt, we came second in Brazil. And I think coming out of that experience, what we really wanted to do this time around was to take a little bit more ownership of our campaign, because we didn't really feel like we did our best performance in Brazil. We thought the team that won probably deserved it, like they sailed exceptionally well, but we wanted to give them an even harder run for their money. And so this time around, it was really, we had a much better plan in terms of like the 4 years, very well structured. And that time frame really suited everything that we were executing along the way. So for the time frame to now get pushed out another year, it's a little bit of a shock in a way. Like, it took quite a while, I think, for myself to really accept and understand that it meant another year of being on a diet and not eating much, because I have to stay really skinny for my type of boat. I'm 6'3" or like 193 centimeters, and I need to stay like sub 75 kilos and be fit. So another year without going in the chocolate drawer. But I guess other than that, you very quickly, being an athlete, you have to kind of spin things around and really look for what the positives present in each situation. And the first and foremost one is that we're super lucky that we are all still really healthy. And we're so fortunate to be from Australia, because we were in Spain at the time of the announcement, and we were 3 days out, I think, from preparing for our World Championships, and which is like the main event before the Olympics. So everything was kind of ticking along and building up. And yeah, we went from a very quick turnaround that it was really hard to believe that 4 days later we were back in Australia. And
that's crazy.
With a very unknown time frame into the future. So it's nice that they've kind of set a date for us for the Olympics. I think that was a big step for a lot of Olympians, to know that what we're next aiming for, because it's hard to go without that goal. So we are really fortunate in that respect. Because I know a lot of people are in much tougher situations health-wise and job uncertainty-wise and stuff like that. So I had 2 weeks of quarantine when I came back, and that was kind of fun, I guess, and in a way, because I just haven't had the chance to really do that, I guess, to be 2 weeks of just not having to worry about too much.
Yeah.
But also really lucky. I'm actually from Lake Macquarie, and my parents have a lake house here, so I could manage to come back to that and
nice.
and at least have the water next to it and some nice sunrises and stay active, which is really important, not only for my sport but just for me personally. I know I get a lot of energy out of doing something in each day. I sleep better, I operate better, and it's a bit of a passion like that.
Yeah.
The hardest is not going to coffee shops. It's the other part of my passion which I love. And
yeah, you have to get your pods out or something on the stove or whatever.
I could go near a coffee shop, but then I'd have to like kind of convince someone to go in to buy me a coffee. It was like I was, I don't know, 15 trying to scavenge underage alcohol all over again or something like that. But so yeah, I think taking the positives out of the situation, we now have a whole nother year to tick off, or not to tick off, but to explore further things that we weren't totally certain on in our preparation.
Yeah.
We were like 90-something% certain, but to get that last percent, which is what an Olympic campaign is ultimately about, it's those little 1%ers and adding them all up. So that's unique. We not back to a functional training environment just yet, but my sister Jamie, who was selected in the FX class about 2 weeks before the coronavirus became an issue. Fortunately for her, that the selection was confirmed and they'll carry those selections forward. So she and I are now in the same location, and we've set up a little bit of a gym and got a good training environment. I'm the chief of enthusiasm and things like that, and she's much more the structured one with the whiteboard of what we actually need to do. So it's a good combination, and she's on weight gain, even though I'm on weight loss. We are she's making sure I'm eating, so that's also very helpful. And yeah, it is different because I look at her and her partner is from Denmark, also an Olympic sailor for their team, but for them they're separated, and I think that's pretty tough for them in this situation as I watch from the outside. But for her and I, we provide probably a lot of support to each other, that we're going through similar things.
Be good to have someone to empathize with who knows exactly that same situation, or how you're feeling emotionally, and just to help you deal with that roller coaster of emotions, I suppose. Yeah.
I think it's spot on. Like it's really hard in an Olympic journey to explain people why we do it. So you kind of have to almost be someone else that can, in the same situation, like even like family and other friends. Sometimes you almost say, we don't really need to talk about the sailing, because I can't use my words to explain it. Like someone else will know what it is. And I guess when you're in a team, in any kind of sailing environment, like in a teamwork, you often have that same situation. It's like, you all know, if you just got that one cross or that one little bit better kite hoist, whatever it was, that it would have changed that race. And it's a really good, I guess, snapshot of what life is like. You never really know like how important that meter was, or that timing of getting that coffee and meeting that person, or something like that. So yeah, you just got to keep going along your own way though, and not dwelling on the mistakes. I think that's a really key lesson, or that I've learned through my Olympic campaign, mostly from my coach Victor, just saying, like for an F1 driver, if you get upset about the corner that you've just been around, you probably crash into the next corner. So this is exactly another situation. It's not worth getting down about the coronavirus. And
takes more energy.
Spot on. To take the positives, and I haven't had April in Australia for more than 12 years, I think. So I think it's fantastic. I'm trying to see this whole new weather climate that I've never experienced for many years. So,
and it's beautiful at the moment. So you're in New South Wales. It's absolutely stunning at the moment.
It is. We're pretty lucky. Hopefully winter's just like this, isn't it? I don't know. I haven't done winter for a while either.
I promise. All right. Well, I guess we've kind of gone, to the present. Let's go back now. And I think it'd be really interesting to hear about how you got into sailing. So you originally, obviously, from New South Wales, but your main club's in Queensland. Is that right?
Yeah, we had a very mixed upbringing, I guess. My dad was a manager, so we moved a lot through different businesses and things he was operating in, and I think I could probably count like 12 or 13 different schools I ended up participating in throughout my upbringing. So my dad was a rugby union player, and that was all I wanted to be when I grew up. I loved Mat Belcher and Johnny Eels, and these were my role models. And I played rugby union, rugby league, and everything for probably 8 or 9 years plus. If anyone who's met me, they'll probably see why I had to change sport, because I was definitely not the right build for rugby.
Not the right body shape, yeah.
No, not at all. But my mum on the other side is one of the least competitive people, and just very compassionate, and she's fantastic to take to sports events, because she'll say, "Why are you doing this? Like, you can just go home now." It's like, "Thanks, Mum. Like, I'm trying to." So it was a very mixed upbringing in that respect, because we weren't from a sailing background. My mother's father had a yacht, but a very cruising style approach to it, and it wasn't until we ended up moving to here at Lake Macquarie and kind of saw it and decided that I'd give it a go. And my mum and dad bought a boat, I think for $200. It was a wooden sabo.
Oh yeah. Oh,
and
nice.
I wasn't allowed to go outside the line of moorings of boats out the front. Now we're sailing like a moth out the front in a 49 FX. Like, you can barely put the centerboards down by the time you get to those yachts. Like, they're really not far away. But that was the rule, and perhaps I helped with boat handling from a young age. And
well, true.
how I started to get the love of, I don't know, playing around the water in the summer and all those things. And fortunately, someone else kind of encouraged me to sail with them, and that was when for me the learning really began, because I guess they showed me what was possible in the sport, and it just felt like each time I went, I was learning more things. Sometimes you don't always love it in that moment, but now I reflect on it thinking how cool it was that I progressed into flying ants and met these people that now have become a huge part of my life, and that kind of transitioned me into the sport. And then through the years, at various times, I've needed crew, and each of my sisters at some stage has participated in an event with myself, and it's been really cool. And my two older sisters, Sasha and Jamie, both have done 470 Olympic campaigns, and the younger sister, Elise, she was the Australian youth match racing champion, because she was conveniently about 25 kilos or something like that. And fortunately, she's now gone down like a more of a social pathway, and enjoys her Saturday nights out and doesn't worry about boats, which I envy a lot. But so she's all been a big part of the journey, and I guess that's kind of how I got into the sailing, and went through from that first wooden sabo into flying ants as the crew. Then I steered for a number of years in sabos, flying ants, 29s, and virtually anything I could get I guess a ride on. And my first kind of like experience of like what professional sailing was to go down to Sydney to the CYC and to do the youth match racing program there, and that really showed me about the kind of like the level of professionalism that you could include into the sport, like keeping a log of what you did and doing fitness and being exposed to really high level coaches. I think that was something that I now truly value. Like, for me, I love to play around in boats on my own respect, but I know if I was going to go into the Olympic campaign in another boat, or the current one I'm in, I'd certainly be trying to get as much coaching involved as you can, whether it's someone with experience in the sport or just someone with a GoPro and a camera, because there's so much you can learn so much quicker in that way. And
how old were you, just out of curiosity, when you went down to CYC for that?
I was probably pretty late. When I went to the CYC, I would have been close to 16, I think.
Okay.
But I didn't really start sailing until I was about 12, I think. And it was more my parents not being sailors. We didn't travel. If we could avoid traveling for a sailing regatta, I'd change the boat instead to do the one that was local rather than traveling.
Okay. Yeah.
It was certainly not centered around the youth nationals or the youth selection teams or Olympic pathways at all. That came much later. But just more to enjoy being on the water and to learn things. And I was still doing a number of other sports. Well, I think I had other sports, like team sports, that kind of it collaborated well, that I didn't burn out too young into sailing, because I'm probably like not an intense personality, but once I get into something, I like to do it a lot. So and then it taught me a lot of different skills as well. To a lot of the time, you're part of a bigger, either a small team or an even bigger team when you're in sailing, and if you don't get that right at a young age, like if you're too much in a single-handed boat, I think you miss some of those skills that can be hard to redevelop later on.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like you had a nice introduction where the passion led you to where you are now, more than necessarily a family sort of journey that, you know, where the path was laid out. So you need a bit more of that appetite, that hunger for it to get it to where you are now. So from so after CYC, well, I guess how did you get into that more professional side? That's probably the next question in my mind, in terms of, were you supported in that? Did someone like pick you out, or, you know, notice your skills? What happened?
I don't know about my skills. My grandfather is a huge role model in my life, and he took me out actually on his boat when I was only a few days old. So even though I had no real interest in sailing, racing, or anything like that, I guess it had been something that I associated as being fun, because I remember it being with him growing up and holidays and stuff like that. So that, I think, planted the right seed that throughout my sailing career, I really wanted it to be fun. And the way I found that was to mix with the people that I enjoyed being with, and to sail different boats, and to feel like I was always learning. So that really pushed me to be quite open with whatever I could sail on, and to come to CYC, like to do I think I was a BMW Winter Series, but at the time that seemed like a huge thing for me to get a ride on one of those boats. And I'd sleep on a yacht at the marina there, because I didn't have anywhere to live in Sydney. We'd catch the train down, stay on a yacht overnight, just so we could be there first thing for the Saturday morning BMW Winter Series. And for most professional sailors now, I look at them and think, oh, like, it's just something to do for them. Whereas for us at that age, it was like everything, and we couldn't believe how fortunate we were to do this race on probably what was Sydney 38s, and it's like not high tech boats, but like at the time seemed like they were the cool thing. And yeah, from there it kind of progressed into some really nice opportunities through different people I met. Got to sail some 18-foot skiffs, and I was not thinking of a professional career at all. I was thinking more like just sail for fun, maybe do some yacht races, and have that kind of a journey through the sport and see where it took me. But I actually ended up meeting one of the sailing club coaches, Victor Kovalenko, who's actually still now my coach at Middle Harbour Yacht Club, and he kind of looked at me. He's pretty well known in the Olympic discipline, even though I had no idea who he was, of dragging people across from other sports or other aspects of life and bringing them in because of either their personality or their size. And he met me in a driveway at the yacht club and said, "Oh, you'd be a really good size for this type of boat." And I had no idea what it was, but he said, "Oh, if you do really well, one day you could be world champion, and we've got a couple of regattas in Europe in a few months' time." And my first thought was about my university exams coming up. I'm thinking, oh, that could be a really good way to get out of those exams. Love it.
Yeah.
So maybe I wasn't the right kind of dream of the Olympics. I didn't even watch the sailing at the Olympics, and in any of those games in Sydney or Athens or Beijing. I just really didn't know anything about it. But that was kind of my pathway into it. And that was 2009, I think, where that kind of opportunity presented itself. And met a great guy from Melbourne, and he really kind of showed me how to sail the boat. And I did my first Olympic campaign, I guess you could call it, 3 years in Europe on and off with him. And we became really good friends, which is a fantastic way to do it. And we did everything. We drove all the boats through Europe. We stayed in cubby houses in people's backyards. We slept by the side of the road in the car. And I put bits of bread into our pesto pasta and just pretended it was chicken. We didn't have any money.
Oh God!
And
doing it tough.
it was different. So but yeah, to come back to the very beginning, my grandfather was probably the first one that said, "It's an amazing opportunity you have in your hands. Like, it's a life experience you need to jump at." And I think he gave me $4,000, I think, over, which was amazing. And that kind of that got my flight to Europe for me for that year, and kept me alive, I guess, throughout that year while I was trying to juggle uni and that as well. And that really kind of set that pathway to do it with my friend Sam, who became my friend. Was a great way to start it. And it taught me a lot about how you need to approach Olympic campaign and a lot of life skills. And from there it's progressed into new things.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of pathway into the sport and into an Olympic career, do you think that set you apart from other sailors out there that have perhaps family in it from a young, or immersed in it from a young age? Do you think How do you think it's made you different or approach your sailing career differently?
Sure, I think you're spot on that it gives you a different approach, and that can be a positive. It can be a challenge sometimes. You need to work hard to try to overcome. But when I look at people like Nathan Arridge, he grew up not very far away from myself, but his family had a great understanding of sailing, how it led to Youth Olympics and the Youth Worlds and etc. into Olympic pathway. And I kind of knew who he was, but I had no idea even what kind of boat it was he was really sailing, because I wasn't in that space. And when I look back at him now, I was like, oh, that was really cool. And for my sailing partner, Mat Belcher, he from the 2000 Olympics was already destined on a pathway towards Olympics. And I think it's really cool because it makes it such a huge part of their life. But for myself, what I think is different is that as I grew up through all these other boats, I have a lot of different experience, whether it be to be a helmsman. I was a match racing helmsman, a yacht helmsman, and dinghy helmsman for a number of years, and now I've transitioned into being more of a crew. But I think a lot of that comes back to your personality style. That in like a short summary, I think as a skipper, you often need to have a lot of self-confidence. You need to trust that when you say the wind's going to go left and you go out there and it doesn't go left, you still need to back yourself the next time and say, oh, it's going to go left, and go for it. And as a crew, you need to be the one that's able to be supportive and kind of guide and use a few of the techniques out of that movie Inception by Leonardo DiCaprio, that you make them think an idea was their own idea, even if it wasn't their idea. And I heard a great quote the other day that said that you can do amazing things if you don't mind who gets the credit. And I think being part of a team, that's the culture you need to create. And the Australian sailing team, it's, I guess, in a rebuilding phase in a way from the success of the 2012 Olympics, but there's a lot of synergies between that and the new future, who can't do it the same way as those other guys. Like, they had their own life experiences, and you need to do it your own way. And that's usually the answer I give to people when they ask me, comparing myself to Mal Page, who was the crew who sailed with Mat Belcher when they won gold in London. And both phenomenal sailors and same coach and everything. And the only thing was different with myself this last quad where we didn't win, but I don't take it personally. I think we just had a different approach to that campaign, and that's probably what inspired me in a way to do this one. I was keen to step away and to find a new project, the same as I had through my youth sailing, because that was what really brought me the fun and the passion. But I'm a competitive person inside of me, it turns out. So I had to go back and just see what if, and could I do that one step better, and to really focus on a goal like that, which is maybe something I hadn't really fully embraced before.
Is this the first time you've encountered a disappointment of this type, or this? It's pretty massive, but I know for myself, when I'm up against it or I'm trying something new, I fall back to previous experience to help me move forward. Like, is that, or to overcome it? Is there? Can you think of something in your sailing career that's helped you with this, or is this kind of, I guess, just dealing with it each day as it comes?
Yeah, since I started sailing with Matt, I just feel like I was in a bit of a whirlwind almost of a great opportunity and great success, and you were kind of just almost trying to keep up. And I often felt like I was running just behind the others, like trying to keep up with their style. And when Rio came around, I think it kind of like exposed that I'd either gone down like a too much weight loss pathway, and some things we managed to gloss over and hadn't quite ticked off as well as we'd like to. Whether it would have made a difference or not to results, like, no one can know. But that was almost a disappointment in that moment, because it was just you'd worked so hard, you'd done everything that anyone had ever asked you to do, and it's like, and there's a saying that says, like, you have to deserve the gold medal, and it's like, oh, like, what didn't I do to deserve it? And I guess that is hard because you reflect on yourself personally in that. But when, like, in reference to now with this virus, I don't really see it as a disappointment. Like, yes, I would have loved it to have been this year, because I felt like we were ready, and I was really looking forward to now having the new opportunity of things from a sailing side professionally, from a personal side, and opportunities along that nature. But it's always going to be for a reason. And to come back to what I guess centers me from previous experiences that I have a memory from like a growing up state handicap championship in a flying ant, and I won a little medal for it. And it was a handicap race, so it was nothing too special. But I wrote a little post-it note, and I remember finding it. It's like, oh, this was the greatest race that you'll ever sail in your life. Like, make sure you remember it.
That's awesome.
And so when I look back at that now, I was like, I have no doubt that we sailed amazing at 3.5 knot boat speed or whatever it was that we sailed back then. But it's all in perspective, and I'm sure many people find a very similar thing reflecting on their school HSC UAI thing. There's so much pressure that goes with that, and hype and build up and everything. But at the end, it's not really what defines the whole rest of your life. It turns out that things become either more important than you thought they were, or a lot less important than you thought they were. And then you just got to kind of balance that out and keep going along with either what you enjoy or what you think is right, or with a bit of guidance from people you trust around you.
Yeah, I have a question here actually about the flying ant, the greatest race. What made that race the greatest race? What was it about it?
To be honest, I have vague memories of this race, but it was in a very tricky location where the wind shifted a lot, and it was like a staggered start and handicap pursuit thing, and we were behind, and having done well in some previous races, and we managed. It just felt like all the shifts we kind of could pick, and to be honest, I was a crew. Same with a guy who was a great sailor, and he did everything. Like, I'm pretty sure I contributed very, very minimal to that. Maybe I bought some snacks and lollies before the race, but it felt like you kind of pursuing that higher level of, like John Bertrand's book talks about it with Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Like, that's always a great one that people come back to, and like the best performance you can put forward. And that is probably something that I've refound now with this Olympic campaign, that you need to put your best performance forwards and see how that stacks up on the day in a way. So there's not many things you can control other than what you personally do. So better off just to focus on that. And I think that keeps me busy enough that I don't need to worry about everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. And have you been in contact with, other members of the Australian sailing team and talking? Are you support for each other as well when it comes to
yeah,
you're all in it, all in it together?
Yes, well, it's fun. Exactly like this this fantastic idea that Debbie and yourself, the Debbie replacement, have set up and implemented. It's just about sharing the journey, I think, with other people, and for us and within the team, it is a bit of a shock that so much of the logistics and things and just the quick time in which things change, the perspective change. I think that was probably harder than the fact that it's been extended another year. So just to, I guess, recenter or confirm with each other that the logistics decisions that we've done, like whether we've left some things somewhere or sent things to different places now that they're not going to Japan, that's an added weight on our mind about how best to potentially spend the remaining time with a lot of unknowns still between now and then, when we can train properly and stuff like that. As I touched on before, my sister Jamie, I'm fortunate enough to actually live with now, and that's like been really cool. Since she changed class after the Rio Olympics, we haven't had the same opportunity to live as close together with her change of partner and things. And I guess we provide a bit of support, like a bit of banter in a way of just what each other up to, and those kind of things. But no, I think people in all aspects of life, we're all in the same situation. I think that's been the best part, whether it's a guy at a local coffee shop who's trying to do his best thing, or parents and family and other people around the place that you see. I think people are generally, despite the concern about what the virus is and things like this and the unknown, most people are being really friendly. I'm finding. I think that's a really positive thing about society, and I hope that a lot of these things can continue, whether it's to read more books like some people are doing, or get to stay in touch with some of your friends that you haven't been in touch with for a while.
And we're seeing some pretty crazy training programs as well, and some improv sort of stuff from different sailors all around the world, which is pretty cool. And actually, I've got a question that's sort of along that lines. Like, I've got one. How about continuing to move forward when you're very successful? Do you have any tips on how to keep yourself focused, not get complacent? So I guess, physical aside, like that mental side, again, staying focused. You were saying, obviously, staying away from the chocolate drawer is pretty important. But what else? What else do you have to think about?
I'm not always good at that one. It's a question I've been asked a few times in that style or different, and it can be linked to like either you're at the same level, like you feel like you're not improving, or that you're at the top level that you keep winning, and how do you find the motivation? And people often ask me like how many of so many events of something that I've won, and I actually have no idea, because partly because in my boat there's two of us, and I know that the guy I sat with will have won more things than I do, so I don't bother counting. So I can't beat him. But I think it's pretty similar for everybody in that way. So I think I look more to external sources of my motivation, and I've probably found some interest, even if I don't have a full passion for it, in the people like within the Formula One or top level triathletes, or really just anyone who's done something of a nature that has excelled or different or really pushed their boundaries. And there's so many stories and different things out there that you can really easily access, whether it's just the movies on Netflix about those girls rowing across the Pacific Ocean, or to Robin Ox Johnson getting in a boat, like a 30-foot boat to sail around the world when everyone still thought it was flat. Like those people, you can always watch them and draw something. And even if it doesn't hit you in that moment, it's amazing how often something in their training or their preparation or their logic of how they confirmed to themselves that what they were doing was either the right idea or the wrong idea. I think there's a lot in that can help you reflect on what you're doing and change something. And I think I use that. I hate doing like those little injury prevention exercises that are so critical to improving and staying in good shape, that I remind myself to think about all those other people from like the triathlon and what they have to go through 10 times harder than what I do. So seems kind of not at the same level as them. So I think whatever the challenge is, you can definitely find a positive to someone else's experience.
Yeah, and keep yourself up there at the level.
Yeah.
Level. I have another question from Brian. He said, "Hi, Will. I heard recently the Olympians wrap themselves in gold sheets, towels, cups, etc. to remind them to focus. Is this something that you'd subscribe to?"
If we've been given gold sheets, I would have been selling them online to make some money. So I'll let you know if I hear anything further about that. But a lot of people are driven by gold, and that's certainly something that my coach in the 470 Victors has made something that's more talked about since the 2000 Olympics. Prior to that, like Australia's had a rich history in sailing, but never really like known as a powerhouse in multiple classes. And that certainly changed in London. Like that was a hugely successful Olympics for the team, and it continued into Rio with Tom Burton winning gold and a couple of silver medals, and certainly something we'd like to emulate coming for Tokyo. I think, I don't know why that perception has changed, that now it seems feasible, but once someone's done it and you kind of seen it, it's a real amazing feeling to lift someone else's, or to lift up a medal. They're always way heavier than you think they are. And
really?
Kind of look at it and think, like, there's a lot of work that went into that, but I hope it's worth it for that athlete. They always look very happy on the podium, I must say, those people. And I think that has probably encouraged people to really dream big. And there's now a really good system within Australia that whatever you want to do within the sport, there's a lot of opportunities. And unfortunately, no gold sheets have come our way yet. But I think that really drives the people in our team, that we're not trying to pursue the high level just to get a tracksuit. We're really there to fight for the top. And I think that's ingrained into all of us. And they don't need to send us any sheets to make us remember that, but if they do, I'll also be happy.
Well, you said you were here for Easter, and you're not normally here for Easter. Then you could get like a gold limp bunny, and there's a little bit of gold foil there. You can probably do something a bit creative with that, but that might be as close as you get.
Just don't tell the dietitian or the coach, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah, I know. There's no chocolate in there. All right, so I've got some other questions here. Also, if anyone has any questions, send them through, because we've got a little bit, we've got more time left, but just send them through and I'll ask them. So when something goes wrong, what do you do to stay in the competition? So I think that's a really interesting question, because people, when I've been on boats plenty of times and something's gone wrong, and some people work really well under pressure and they stay focused, and other people, it just throws them completely out of whack, and then there's too much chatter, and there's, you know that they've lost the focus, and that's the game gone, the competition gone.
Sure, I think it can happen from like a nature of someone either feeling often stressed or uncomfortable. Like that often presents itself as a challenge from like the crew dynamics that I know Tom Slinksy often talks about. Like he needs to let the frustration out, so he can be quite aggressive for like a short period of time and kind of yell and swear and get it out of his system, but then he can roll forwards very quickly back into his race mentality. For myself, I'm a relatively calm personality. I think I'd like to think of myself, and I probably, having been through a few situations, that I know that the best way to approach a problem is to take a leaf out of my grandfather's book, as I would usually say, and approach it with some positivity and try to be constructive. I think that's really key. Like you can be positive, but if you can't try to put the steps into place of how to rectify a situation or how to move forward from a situation, I think that can be really hard for others to grasp. So that's certainly a key part of that, I think. On the other side, you can often also have equipment damage within our sport, and my dad is hugely competitive, and I don't know if I ever did as a young kid, I'll have to ask him, but if I came into shore without a good reason for not finishing a race, I think he'd give me a look that I wouldn't want to repeat, and that probably drove me from a young age to be quite, I don't know, creative in ways to solve problems. If I broke something, how to get over it. And even as recent as the last Japan events I did with Matt, we broke our boom vane like maybe a minute before the 5-minute gun, and in quite a tense situation with the points and stuff like that. And we managed to grab another one off the coach. It didn't fit, so then I had to repair the one that we existing had, and I had about 40 seconds to say to him exactly what I needed to be able to build a replacement situation for the boom vane to get us through that race. And I think that kind of like experience is obviously unique and like with the time frame, but be creative and come up with something. I don't think anyone's ever going to fault you for trying to make a solution for something. So that's the best approach, I think. And I know it's a bit of a lame thing, but like, don't quit. Like, just you'll learn something.
Yeah, exactly.
and
not let the emotions boil over either, I guess. Like, let the emotions go. And then...
Sure, you need to figure out for yourself what the best way to get it out is. For some people it can be being upset in the moment. Other people, they can kind of just like take a break and then water off ducks back and just move on. And some great sailors that have those skills. And I think you're trying to emulate, like I touched on before about the F1 driver. Like, don't dwell on that one bad corner, because you'll be in the wall in the next one. You just got to get on with it and reflect on it afterwards, and make sure you do take the lesson from it. That's the other important part about it, I think, to keep improving, which is a great mindset. You've got to make sure you do face the facts and learn from that situation afterwards.
Do the debrief, take the lesson. Absolutely. Now I have another question. So it's kind of very much on context. How important is the debrief? Win, lose, draw. What are the typical items covered? Do you have like a list that you kind of go through mentally, or is it more just ad hoc?
Over the years, it's changed, and it changes for each team you're involved in, just what works for different people. And I remember from a young age in my Sabo days, I reflect on Mat racing days. I reflect on like every aspect of the race. So I could lie in my bed and I could picture everything, and I was so critical. And I get so down about races where I'd made mistakes and thinking about things, and it was often hard to move on from some of those situations. I think as I've grown up, I think I probably, not that I care less about it, but I've learned how to care differently from things and to focus more on what I did learn rather than just the bad results that often came with it. For myself, in my Olympic campaign now, we actually probably have a fairly loose debrief compared to the standards of others. Victor's not the type of guy to sit down and make us watch 4 hours of something or to talk through things to infinite detail. He'll look for principles, which I think is an important way to look at stuff, because the principles lessons that you take from something will always stay the same. That's why they're the principles. So
Yeah.
we focus probably more around those. And within our campaign, we have with 3 to 4 key topics, which are our interest points for that, either the entire campaign or that particular event or what we're trying to work on. And we try to just work it around that, not ignoring other glaring factors, but just that's our structure to keep it centered.
Like, what's an example? Would you say?
I guess like in almost every boat race, if you're fast, it makes everything else look really good. So it's certainly a topic that will be there, and you'll say, okay, like speed is one of our topics.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything key that we learned today that we should make sure we remember for the future? Or was there something like glaringly obvious that we didn't do right and that someone else was doing better? And a TP52 team that I was fortunate enough to sail with last year, they would frame it about, okay, what did we do well? What did we do poorly? And what did the winners do really well? And I think it's a great way to look at it, because if you end up winning the race, then you only have to answer 2 questions instead of 3. So there's a reward that goes with it. And yeah, essentially, if you can improve on those 3 areas, you'll certainly do better in the next race. And that staff, that team, they're a team of like 20 people and been together for a long time. And they could do it more as like an informal chat. The coach would bring some key topics. If there was an incident or something that we knew we hadn't quite got right, we'd make sure we went through the processes to make sure that being a big team, that process was correct so that we could rectify it for next time. But more in the Olympic campaign, where it's a much smaller team, you can do that over coffee, and it can just be an informal chat to say, oh, I was thinking this, or what do you reckon about that? Or like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Or, oh yeah, we should definitely try and do that today. And that kind of like positive reinforcement of that you're on the same task, I think really helps you in a small team environment. And that can be a much easier way to do it. But it's certainly a personal preference thing. And some people do excellent by reflecting back on the yacht trackers and things like that, and understanding the science behind it.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to ask you, because I was actually speaking to someone I sailed with, Selena, a little while ago, and she said when she was learning to sail, her dad made her document or keep records of what she learned, what didn't go well, etc. And kind of she has this big record. And I've found myself, even when I'm learning something new, I've started documenting that too, like what did I learn, and just reminders of the best way to, rig or whatever, set a kite, whatever it might be. Do you document anything, or do you keep a diary and keep track of these sort of thoughts, or have you in the past? And
when I teach people to sail, one of my former jobs, I used to always laugh, and as I kind of asked them, I said, like, are you interested in like arts, or are you interested more in like the sciences? Because I think there's kind of 2 trains of thought of how you approach sailing. One, the arts, you don't really think about it much, and you just focus on like the natural feelings of things, and it kind of seems to build on you, and you kind of naturally take on what is important and not so important in that approach. Whereas the sciences, you want to know why everything works, and then it's a process to really understand which key component of that process was the driving force behind it. And I think, like you touched on, if you're not in that space continually, I do really see some value in writing notes on those things. Mm-hmm. So over my sailing career, I guess for the different boats I sailed at times, I've certainly written notes. Like within the TP52, I've written myself notes on like the important information which was key for me to present in my role as a strategist or as a tactician on that particular boat, as well as like just broad trimming notes, I guess, of how to make sure that when you jump on that type of boat, you can be fast again to replicate what you've done.
Yeah. Now
in the 470, we are in a space where we've done it so much in a way that the key lessons have become ingrained in us. I don't think any 470 skipper will ever forget like the optimum rake, like angle of the mast. Like I don't actually know what it is because I'm a crew, so it's not my area. But I was thinking it's just like one of those key things that like it's just they'll never have to ask anyone for it ever again in their life, because it's just they've done it to death. And those key things, they become that way. And if there's anything that shocks you out of the side, I certainly write it down. And it's amazing, once you've written it down once, you often remember it afterwards. But for us, we kind of provide more of that summary of information within our event reports at the end, or event debrief notes that we kind of document down together, and that's enough for us in that environment. But yeah, in the other boats over various times for etchels or fast buoys, whatever. I've within my computer, I've got different documents of notes of that I kind of remember, or I've learned something in that space, and it's hard to kind of correlate those from one project into the next. Like they're very particular to that type of boat, but I think the broad crossover of all that information just becomes hopefully part of your person and your character, because sailing's like life. Like you can't even see the wind when you're out sailing, a bit like you don't know what's around the corner for you in life, and you got to be able to train yourself to take on those, identify those patterns, and to take on those challenges as you go, to make it part of you as a person.
Absolutely. Well, what sort of habits or I guess habits have you seen amongst other sailors, like really skilled sailors, professional sailors, that you've noted that sets them apart? Or, is there anything that stands out for you that you think, oh, that's why they're so good?
Sure. Like I'm really fortunate now to sail with Mat Belcher from up near Gold Coast, and he's been doing the 470 for over 20 years with huge success, particularly the last 10 years or so. And it's hard to sometimes identify this because I'm really close to it, but he has a very intense personality, that not intense that like unpleasant to talk to by all means, but he can convert his passion in his love of 470s into being really mentally active, that each part of his lifestyle comes about trying to be the best in a way. Like he'll want to be the first to the car park, or the first one to the coffee shop queue, or the first one to put the boat in the water, and he's made that part of his lifestyle. And I can certainly see how that has grown into success for him, because he's very driven. I look at other people and they have an interest in how stuff works. One of my very good friends, Kyle Langford, I look at him, he's an amazing sailor and great racer, but I think he enjoys the process of getting to the race even more so than the race itself. Like he is just driven on understanding why a boat is faster, what crazy idea he can come up with to make it faster again. And I often look at him and think, oh, like it's really cool. I envy some of his passion in that area, because for me, I'm drawn more by the racecraft itself. Like I really enjoy like the battle, I guess, of using those same tactical skills in different manners, but to implement that perfect game of chess kind of thing. There's no such thing, but like that, I really enjoy that side of it. So I think, that kind of can drive different people's personalities or personas, and it's so much about like your genetics, or like who you were coached by, and the type of boat you sail. You see a big trend difference between people that sail skiffs versus lasers or 470s, just because of the different nature of the racing. One is more speed, a bit more freestyle, and the other one's very like hand-to-hand combat kind of style, in a like a nice way. So you do see that in their personalities, but most of those guys that are at the top are extremely driven, and even if you might not see it firsthand, they give you this reputation that they go out for a drink or something in the evenings, and they can be very personal people. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned speed before, like it's come up a bit, and I have a question actually. Back to some tips. So, because we're coming towards the end, so last lot of questions, I think. But do you have any tips for judging your speed, whether your speed is good or bad, and what might be the cause if it is bad?
Yeah, like there's some great products available on the market now. Even Strava on your iPhone is pretty good actually as a speed, or one of those watches that give you speed. Yeah, they're not bad. And then maybe not legal during racing, but as a training tool, it's a great one. But the primary thing that we use is another boat. It's a great reference because there's so many variables in our sport, whether it's the wind density or the water temperature, or like if it's salty or fresh water, or weed, or like undercurrents. Like there's so much that goes into it. You never really know what you're dealing with. So another boat's always the best reference. But as you have more and more time on the boat, you can almost begin to feel whether the boat feels like it's at its potential, or if it's just struggling to accelerate or something like that. And I guess that comes through experience, and that's certainly something probably why high-end professional sailors are something that people want to have on board, because you can almost feel some of those things in advance before the instruments can give you that delayed feedback. And that in small boats, you don't have those instruments, so you really hone in those skills and learn a lot in that way. In the big boats, you have some speedos and GPS and stuff which can help correlate if one day is not as good as another, etc. The challenge is to know why you aren't fast. That is that's an excellent book, and there are some fantastic books out there about it. Usually it is something to do with the sail flow. I reckon is 95% of it is the sail trim. If your sails ultimately aren't trimmed as well as they can be, whether it's that they're old or they're a little bit stalled, things like that, that's a huge influence on your performance. And you see that in airplanes as well. Like, you look at the different shapes of different airplanes, you can quickly see why some are faster than others, regardless of the size of their engine. And I think that's probably a very good starting point. And there's so many nice people out there in our sport, and that's certainly something I've learned later in my life. I was always way too shy to ask people their opinion, and I'd see these people and I'd be fangirling them just like from afar, like, oh, like, look at that person over there.
Yeah.
Those ones that are actually at the top are often the really, really nice ones, and they're the ones that are most willing to offer their time to help you. So, so don't be afraid to go out and ask, and yeah, you'll be surprised that often they might just come back with just a little gem of wisdom, and then it can really set you on the right pathway going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you actually, as we start to wrap up, I think I don't have any other questions yet, but have you spoken to any other people who've been, to the Olympics before about this current situation with Tokyo, etc.? Are you finding that people are wanting to impart their experience or their knowledge if they've had similar things in the past?
Yeah, I'm in touch with quite a few other athletes, which is really cool. It's been probably one of the more exciting parts of my journey into the Olympics. Is that, as I touched on at the beginning, like, I'm always a huge fangirl of other people and their abilities. And as I didn't really always like the physical fitness side, the requirement of our boat to being fit and stuff, I tried to turn that negative into a positive. And now I love triathlons and any other sport and what they're doing to stay fit. So I guess I've been in touch with a few in that respect to see what they're up to and how they can stay active and what they're doing to stay mentally engaged. For a lot of them, most of them, they can't train or do anything. And I look at the swimming team, like, there's no swimming pools open. And I know Bronte Campbell's down swimming laps down in the little Clovelly little inlet down there. And her sister went home to visit her family in Brisbane. She can't do anything. So it's, you're a bit fortunate, hit and miss about what people have got access to and don't. There's some great online tools like that Zwift cycling thing that it's just huge now.
It is,
I feel like a lot of people are out walking their dogs more than ever. And I guess it really just comes back to that first part we just talked about, just saying that you need to take whatever opportunity you can, and they'll always present themselves. And for each of the people I've spoken to in the other sports, we're all in the same situation, that we're more concerned about people's health, and you want the Olympics to be a positive story and a bit of a celebration, I guess, on the other side, rather than being shrouded in negativity and people unhappy that you're there and things like that. So I think we're all probably pretty understanding of where it's at, and given the uncertainty of what we can each do just at the moment, that extra time frame to say it's a year away rather than in 4 months is certainly much better for our states of mind. And I think a lot of people are probably just really enjoying just the change. It's the Olympic lifestyle becomes so encompassing on everything in your life that it's a shame we can't catch up in person with all the people that we want to see that we haven't seen. And,
well, that's true. You've got all this time without a intense training regime and not allowed to see anybody. Well,
I don't know about not intense regime. I did 100 Ks, at least over 100 Ks today, running and cycling, plus a gym session and 4 hours of online meetings. So I feel like my day's been very busy by my other standards. I didn't get to go sailing in a boat at all, but no, it's a different view to how things are. like this whole online webinar thing is something new to me, and I probably figured out I don't really want to work too much in an office in my future, but I could do it for bits. And
yeah, good luck with that. I hope you achieve that.
Yeah, valuable learning skills, and learned more about gardening I think in the last month than I have in my entire life. So yeah,
a time for other interests to flourish, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully so. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Will. I think I might call it there. I don't have any other questions. So, I just want to wish you all the best with the next 12 months and with the Tokyo campaign when we get to it. And thank you to everyone for listening. And sorry again on behalf of Deb she couldn't make it because of her dog. She's just saying thank you, so she must be listening to me. Hopefully I pass the test and get 10 out of 10. But thanks again. And if anyone wants to watch the recording, it's on. It'll be recorded and put onto my Sal page. But thanks, Will.
So thank you very much for having me, and I think it's a great initiative what you're doing to keep the interest alive. And don't be afraid for people to reach out and to help or to ask questions, or if help is needed on different things. I'm not great on social media, but you can certainly try, and I'll do my best to come back to you. And there's a lot of really talented people out there that will do a lot to try to share some insight into their own journey and how they can relate to you. And don't be afraid to ask. That would be for sure my biggest piece of advice.
Fantastic.
So stay safe, and no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers. Okay.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you'd like to know more about this program or the MySail app and community, head on over to mysail.team. That's mysail.team. Until next time, stay safe and happy sailing.